More breaking news tonight. The top Republican and Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee taking a bipartisan first step to investigate Michael Flynn's resignation and the events leading up to it. Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and Ranking Democrat Dianne Feinstein asking Attorney General Sessions and FBI Director Comey to send documents and brief them on the case. Where this leads, of course, is anybody's guess, which also was said about many investigations that began one place only to end up worlds away. More on that from Brianna Keeler.
I have felt it was my duty to persevere.
It spelled the end of a presidency.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
And it all started with a burglary, portrayed here in the film All the President's Men.
Hold it, you must hold, please.
Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein followed a money trail from the Democratic Party headquarters break-in to the committee to re-elect President Nixon.
I'm not a crook.
Prompting Congress to investigate and unexpectedly discover Nixon taped conversations in the Oval Office. The Supreme Court compelled the tape's release, revealing Nixon helped orchestrate a cover-up just 6 days after the Watergate burglary. Bill Clinton's presidency was nearly undone by an investigation into a land deal.
We were assigned a difficult job.
Ken Starr, a staunch Republican, eventually headed it up. And during his investigation, a former White House staffer, Linda Tripp, decided to give him her secretly recorded phone conversations with a former White House intern, Monica Lewinsky.
Linda, if I ever want to have an affair with a married man again, especially if he's president, please shoot.
When Clinton testified in a sexual harassment case brought by former Arkansas State employee Paula Jones,
he said, "This is the room number if you can meet him up in the room."
He lied under oath, denying sexual contact with Lewinsky.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
The Jones case was ultimately dismissed. The Whitewater probe yielded nothing, but Congress impeached Bill Clinton for lying under oath and obstructing justice, though he was acquitted. And more recently,
what difference at this point does it make?
An investigation by congressional Republicans into Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's role in the Libya attack that killed a U.S. ambassador led to a troubling discovery that arguably helped derail her bid for the White House. As secretary, she had used a personal email account hosted on a computer server she kept in her basement.
The server will remain private.
The FBI launched an investigation and took possession of the server, which had been wiped.
What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no.
Lawsuits led to the release of Clinton's emails as voters doubted her trustworthiness. In summer 2016, FBI Director James Comey announced he would not recommend criminal charges, but chastised Clinton and her team.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
Comey reopened the case briefly just before the election after emails between Clinton and her top aide Huma Abedin were discovered in the FBI's investigation of Abedin's husband, disgraced former Congressman Anthony Weiner. The case was quickly closed again, but many Democrats and former campaign aides argue it was responsible for Clinton's loss. Anderson.
Brianna Keeler, thanks very much. The panel's back this hour. Joining us also is CNN senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. So, Jeff, I mean, congressional investigations, criminal investigations, very different things.
They are very different things, but one thing to keep in mind is that when Nixon was forced out of office, when Clinton was impeached, Congress, the House of Representatives, was in control of the opposition party. And here, Republicans control the House of Representatives, and they are not inclined to investigate Donald Trump. And you see that throughout these tumultuous 3 weeks that we have seen. And I think that's a major distinction that will help Trump a great deal.
Why would the Senate? I mean, it sounds like the Senate's more willing to look into it than House Republicans.
Well, not to be too cynical or uncynical, there's a lot to look into here. I mean, the Russians may have controlled or attempted to control the outcome of this election with the involvement of the Trump campaign. That's a pretty big deal. I think there's some patriots in the Senate of both parties who think this is worth looking into, and that's what they're doing.
And I mean, obviously, the president is focusing on leaks. Are all leaks illegal?
No. It is illegal to leak classified information. It's illegal to leak grand jury material that's before a grand jury. But most of what reporters get is confidential in an employment setting, but like who's up and who's down in the White House and who likes whom. That you can get fired for. That's a violation of confidence, confidences, but it is not illegal at all.
All right, Carl Bernstein, we saw you in Breonna Keeler's piece, or at least
my bar mitzvah picture.
Yes, your bar, right? But I think, obviously, as you said in the last hour, you're wary about comparing this, obviously, to Watergate. There's so much we don't know at this point. But in terms of a congressional investigation, Watergate is a clear example of Congress deeming it important enough to establish a separate committee to look into it, which, again, Republicans are resistant to right now.
Well, not only was it a select committee of both parties, but the American system worked in Watergate, and Republicans ought to welcome a real investigation of what happened in the campaign involving the Russians. If there is an innocent explanation for all of this, what did the president know and when did he know it, as was said during the Watergate investigation, they should welcome such an investigation, because we need to find out what happened. And the great thing that occurred in Watergate was this bipartisanship. The key votes for impeachment came from, in the House Judiciary Committee, came from Republicans, courageous Republicans. It was Barry Goldwater, the nominee of his party, the Republican Party, to be president in 1964, who marched to the White House and told Richard Nixon he had to resign. That all I'm suggesting here is we need Republicans to be, as Jeff said, patriots. Find out what happened. If all is in order, that's great for everybody. But we need to find out, and we need Republicans to join with Democrats and say, we want the truth.
Mary Catherine, what about that?
Well, I think here's the thing. I think it's possible to hold two ideas in your head at the same time, which is to be very concerned about what went down on the campaign and the connections with Russia, and to also be concerned about the deep state and the intel community feeling emboldened to make what looks like a fairly coordinated leak campaign against the White House. Those are two things that you can be worried about at the same time, and I am. And what I would love to get to the bottom of this. What concerns me is if you do the investigation and so much of this information is classified, does it actually become illuminating to the public, or do we just see continued leaks from that investigation from either side trying to figure out what's going on? That I am concerned that this did not become illuminating in the end, even though it needs to be investigated.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are trying to have that conversation about should we be concerned about what the intelligence community is doing here. And I think under normal circumstances, I would say yes. The only thing that makes this a little different is what is their motivation. And they are under attack by the President of the United States, I think, in a pretty serious way. And so they do have an interest, I think, in preserving, something that they think is very important. They see themselves as protecting the United States. And so that's not a terrible motivation. And they also see that the President did know about this. And he wasn't going to do anything about it, right? I mean,
I'm not sure
it came to his attention is only because it was leaked to the media.
My concern is I'm not sure that the leaking campaign actually shores up with the American people the idea that they're doing the job that they should be doing. I think that might be a miscalculation on the
We should also point out leaks come from a lot of different places, not just the intelligence community, the White House. I mean, a lot of those folks around the president, I imagine,
the thought occurs that somebody is, in essence, tapping the president's phone or using perhaps American intelligence to eavesdrop on their own president. And then
where do we see that?
Huh?
What? When did that happen?
I saw a former NSA guy today suggesting that was a possibility.
Is that legal?
I'm not saying it happened.
There's no evidence that that's happened.
I'm not saying that it has happened, but I'm just saying that this whole business of, as you refer to it, the deep state, that is very concerning because it doesn't make any difference who's the president of the United States. You can't have a government in open rebellion.
Are you more concerned about leaks or Russia's involvement in
I am more
hacking
concerned about
and
the leaks.
Really?
Really, because I think that I am concerned that the intelligence community and other parts of the bureaucracy that have nothing to do with intelligence are in varying stages of open rebellion against.
So leaks from the intelligence community is a bigger issue than leaks from Russia about conversations in the DNC or conversations that they may for all we know that they have of conversations of White House employees or any other.
I do think so because it concerns me that we would have a part of the American government in rebellion against the head of the American government.
But is it hypocritical for Donald Trump to embrace WikiLeaks during the campaign and say he loves WikiLeaks and now be, complaining about leaks?
Yeah, maybe you got me there. Maybe you got me there.
Well,
but seriously, I mean, this is an institutional problem for the presidency, and they've got to resolve it.
It's a problem that he created, though. I mean, let's just
Jeffrey
be honest.
is one who's been involved in the reporting. Just let me say that you've got a very circumscribed view of how this story has developed and who sources are. Yes, we also need to look at people in the White House who know things about this. We need to look at people in the intelligence community, in the Congress of the United States, private investigators. There's all kinds of people and campaign aides.
Right. There's
to
a lot
the
of
former
people.
president. Don't think this is some kind of coup by the intelligence community, and it's anything that simplistic.
Okay, it's a good note to end on.